Hi everyone, so we've got a few topics to cover today, but obviously if you've got any questions or things you'd like to ask us, then please feel free to add it to the chat and we'll try and get to it as we go through. So should we, Joris, while we've got people to type some stuff in, Javier, do you want to go through the first topic?
Okay, so well, today we wanted to talk about deep links. That's basically a feature that will allow you to generate a link that when you open it in, for instance, in the phone mobile browser, it will direct the user to the app. So in case you have a website, or well, there are like few use cases where you could use this. You could even generate QR codes that navigate to a specific app page. So I believe it's useful for some cases. So we'll just go through it briefly with an example. I will share my screen. Okay. So I'm gonna show it with a sample app we have, which is the Expeditions Guide. So this app has like several screens. First, like if we go to the design, it's just a home page with a slider here that's connected to a list. Then there is like a detail page for each of those expeditions, and then finally there is like a web view from Google Maps, I believe, that we also get from API, and well, some more screens later. So we are just gonna show how we could create one deep link for screen. First, we will do like probably the easiest one, which is the home page, because it doesn't basically the home page will always be the same, while this detail page will be different depending on the items the user chose here. So for this type of screens that are static, that are always the same, it's just quite easy. You need to go to here, integrations. There is like, if you want to create a deep link for a published app, there are some Firebase settings you need to complete first. We will not cover that now, but you have all the documentation explaining how to do it. But basically, to generate a deep link, if you do it for Bravo Vision, you don't need all those settings, but it's the same process as if it was for the published app. You need to have a name here, on page deep link. You need to go to Bravo Vision, and if you long press on the desired page, you will be able to copy the URL. In this case, I already did that before, so I will just copy paste it here. And then finally, this is a URL that will be open if someone opens this deep link from a desktop device. So if you open it from a mobile phone, it will try to find, in this case, since we are gonna create the deep link for Bravo Vision, it will try to find the Bravo Vision app. If you create it for your live app, it will try to find the live app and install it in case it's not installed there. And in case it is, it will navigate to this specific page we indicated here. But we need to have this like as a fallback in case someone opens the deep link from the desktop, a desktop device. So we'll just put the Bravo Studio homepage, for instance. And finally, we need to press here. And now we have here our deep link. If we click this button, it will copy the link to our clipboard, and we can also display it in QR mode. So this can be scanned with your phone devices. Okay, so that's how to generate a deep link for a static page. Then there is like a more interesting part, which is how would I generate a deep link, for instance, for one of the detail pages about one specific element here. To show this, I will maybe share my phone screen. That might be easier for you to explain. just a second. Okay.
Just while you do that, Javier, maybe I'll just mention one of the things that's really important about deep linking is for notifications. So often you might want to tell people to go into your app to do an action, and deep link enables them. You can send a deep link through a notification so that when it comes up, they can go straight into whatever action that you want them to do. So for example, maybe you're saying, hey, the item that you've just wanted to buy is now back in stock, and you can go straight back to that item's page to buy it. So it makes it so you can, and really that combination of deep linking notifications is really powerful, and it's something you can't really do with web-based apps as easily. So it's a really important thing that mobile apps have over other ways of connecting with users.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, right now what we will do is, for instance, we'll select this Patagonia expedition, and we'll create. Ouch! I don't know what happened. Oh, there we go. I think the cable is not super good, but we will try to generate a deep link that navigates to this specific detail page, showing more info about this expedition. So to do that, I mean, we would first need to do the same. Here, copy the page URL, and then I will just change my okay, and then we will need to add something to that URL explaining that we actually want to get the specific detail for that expedition. And basically the way Bravo does that is, as you can see here in the URL for the detail page, we are passing the ID parameter that indicates the specific row in Airtable. So for Bravo to know what Airtable row to get information from, we need to pass it this ID parameter. And actually, that's something that the specific app page contains somehow. So this is, I mean, it's kind of a bit complex right now because we need to encode this ID parameter, but I will show some how you can do it. So basically, this is a JSON file, and this contains all the information about your application. So here you have information about all the screens, all the data, everything. And actually here, since as you can see, this part of the URL makes reference to the app. So this is the app ID. It's the same you can see here. So you can easily generate this Bravo URL by copying all this information. We have this in the documentation, like how to how this base URL looks like. And then if you add the app ID here and you use the browser, this is a JSON file. And then here, I mean, it's kind of complex the first time you look at it, but if you understand, then it gets easier. So basically here, the interesting part is the one that tells us about how many screens the app has. So here, as you can see, there is like first there is menus. So if in case we have a menu, as we do now, we have this slide menu. We have the information about that here, but then the interesting part is pages. So here in pages, we have the home page, we have the detail page for all those places, etc. So we will go to the home page now. You can see here there is a remote URL. This is basically it will open another JSON, but targeting specifically the home page data. And this is the one we want to obtain, because there we will see all those IDs that we are getting from Airtable. So this is the list request connected to the home page, and this will return all the rows in Airtable, right? All those expeditions. And here we will have this ID. And if we go to that page, to this URL, home page, home list, that's the name of the page, it will open another JSON. I opened it before here. So basically here we have all the information about that page, including all that data we got from Airtable. So this is the live version of the app. That's the one with all the data here. And as you can see, this is also like a long, very long JSON. Actually, there is, if you try to find some, for instance, if you are trying to find specific text, you can type in here and you will find it faster. But here we have, as you can see, we have here components, right? So this is, in this case, this is getting all that information about the list items. So if we try to, well, we have everything like expanded here, but here we have the body. This is all the everything, all the elements in the page, right? We have here like a header, we have some text here, and then if we go below, finally we can find the information about all those expeditions. So you see it visually, it will be all these items that when we bind them to a list, they will replicate themselves like as many times as we have as the rows we have in our database. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Those are all those list items. So as you can see here, we will get, for instance, number 5. You can find here like the name of the place. You can find here like, you know, this specific, the name, the continent, all that. So if you are looking for, we said we wanted to find Patagonia, I think. So we can try to find it here. There we go.
But Javier, are we going to be building it from this, or are you just going to show them how to get a deep?
Yeah, I mean, we are almost there. So it's actually when you find that specific component, you can get that URL that then you can generate the deep link with. So I will try to show that now. I mean, it's kind of hard to navigate through JSON sometimes, but it was component 15. Here we go. So this is Patagonia, as you can see. This is part of this component. And here we have this URL. So this URL will open the detail page for that Patagonia thing. And this is the URL we need for the deep link. So we can just copy it here. And if we go here, we can say Patagonia deep link. We copy it here. As you can see, it has this extra string. And this is basically that ID here, the one here in the reference in the Airtable row, encoded in base 64. That's an encoding format. And that's here. And then with this URL, we can generate the deep link as we did before. There we go. And that deep link is going to target that specific page for that detail information.
Well, we can also do that from Bravo Vision, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I think here it's a bit easier to navigate the JSON, because with Bravo Vision, what you will need to do is first get the URL, and then I think you will need to encode the ID.
No, it does it for you.
Oh.
So if you go to Bravo Vision,
okay.
If you show on the phone and go to the same page in Bravo Vision, it gives you not only the URL but also the parameters you need for that page. So
okay,
it's actually,
then it's easier. Actually, yeah.
I mean, one thing I'd say is we develop things so fast that not everybody is aware of all the speed ups. Because I thought the same when I first saw this. I thought it was just part of the URL. But if you go, maybe you could show it on your screen if you could bring up the app.
Yeah, let me just share my phone. Yeah, so I'm in this detail page we were talking about. So yeah, I mean, if you copy page URL here, well, actually, I don't know if I can even visualize it somehow, but yeah, I mean, that's basically the same piece of URL that I was copying here. So with that, you should be able to do the same to generate a deep link targeting specific page. But you should be aware, however, that that deep link will be different for each of those detail pages, because we have like a list of a lot of items, and depending on which one you press, you will get different data.
So one of the things I found with generating these deep links is the problem you have is, and you have it for both methods we talked about today, is when you want to develop a deep link for something, a page you can't navigate to, or something you haven't done before, then you have to create the deep link from scratch. And that's actually quite hard to do. Although, I mean, it basically involves adding together the URL and then kind of adding this extra bit on the end, which has all the parameters built into it. So one of the things we're going to try and do over the next few days is to build a a generator, probably in Google Sheets, which will do that for you. So it will actually generate deep links to make that a bit easier. But deep linking is a really powerful tool. Now, I think, and Sheila asked a question before we lost the last stream about whether and how deep links work. And I think if I remember the question right, it was basically saying if you send notifications with one signal and then have send a deep link, you can go back into the app to the page that you want. And the answer is yes. You can actually send a deep link to any page in your application, even if it's within a list, because what will happen is that deep link will contain the parameters to make all the same calls to get to that page. So you can actually send someone right into the middle of your application. So if you can send them to like a product page, or some content that's specific, that's loaded from APIs. Deep linking and notifications are extremely powerful, and one of the things we don't really talk enough about, because it opens up a whole ton of things that you can't normally get. So I'd recommend playing with it if you can. Yes, Sheila, I just answered your question, which I just hopefully answered your question. But maybe there's another one that I didn't answer. So please, if you don't mind, if the people put questions we haven't answered, if you could put them back in again, because unfortunately the questions were dropped from the last feed, which was a shame. But yeah, if there's anyone answer questions, then please put them in and we'll try and answer them. Okay, so there was another question also we had around just touching, I think it was, if they're still here, maybe they didn't come back. There was a question about Xano pagination. So apparently, one of the problems with Xano pagination is they use JSON pagination and we use query parameters pagination. So the question was, how do you do this? Now, Xano does have a tutorial, which I put in the link in the chat, but apparently there's some problems with that. So maybe we'll try and, just to answer that question, we'll try and do a session on that. We'll have a look into that and maybe do a session if it needs a bit more explanation, because obviously pagination is really important. We don't want to have a gap like that.
Yep.
Okay, so while we wait for more people to type things in, should we talk a little bit about the next topic, Javier? Maybe.
Yeah, about the imports, right?
Yeah, the imports.
Okay, so, well, basically, whenever you import a Figma file into Bravo, there are like several different pieces of the file. So you have the pages, then you have the nodes, which are like let's say all the elements that the file contains. Then there is like some special elements, which are the render nodes, which are the ones that require for us to do a special processing with them in Figma. And those are, for instance, like could be like vectors, or could be like some specific elements. And then there is like the assets, which can be images, SVGs, all that. So for each of them, there is a maximum amount of elements you can import into Bravo. And for sure, there are like some guidelines in order to try to make the most functionality and the biggest number of screens with the minimum amount of those elements. And we have like a specific section in the Help Center for that as well. And the good thing, so we wanted to tell you that we will work on giving more visibility about all those elements that the Figma files contain. So it's also easier for you to see how you can reduce those elements in case you are hitting a specific import limitation. Because it's kind of easy that when you start growing your app bigger, at some point you find some of those limits, and then you need to find a way to make it importable again. So
do you have the screen with the limits on? We could just talk through the numbers a little bit, just so people can get an idea of what these numbers look like.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually just a second, because we had like this I I mean, I could try to import a file, maybe. Maybe that's easiest. And then
I mean, I was just wanted to show the screen just so people can visualize what the numbers are, so we could like list them, so we could show them the sort of sizes and talk through that. That's what I was trying to, I mean, literally to have like, because I think, you know, just to kind of, we've got like a limit of just to show them the limits. That's what I meant. Having a slide of the limits so we could actually show on the screen.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, true. No, I don't have that at the moment. However, we could go through those through the specific items now. So let me just import the file because this.
Well, maybe you could share the screen, because I think there's something in the help center which has the limits on. Maybe we could show that, and then we could. It's just easier to kind of talk about. I always find it's easier to talk about numbers by showing them on the screen.
Yeah, no, for sure. We do have a section for troubleshooting.
Yeah, maybe showing that might be helpful, just so we can talk about a bit more detail, because it's something that you shouldn't normally need to see, but as you get app gets more complex, sometimes you can hit these limits, and it's important to understand how you can minimize. There's a few tricks to minimizing them, so let's try to find something we can use to.
Okay.
You have the page? I can see if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Otherwise, I can just copy the specific names. So yeah, because I found the page in the help center, but it's more about the errors we saw when you hit the limits. So, for instance, it could be related to specifically having too many screens or pages. Could be more like, and we have some messages adapted to that, but I wanted to show sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to think, well, I mean, do we have anywhere we could show what the limits are? Because I think that would, let's go through them. I mean, we have them, we need to, I think we need to add a page to the help center to explain this, because I think it's...
Yeah, we will update it. I will just share just a note now, with the text with those what those limits are.
Okay, well, let's go through them. So currently, I think it's, well, do you have the limits available? I can dig it out. Actually.
Yeah.
Let me just...
Yeah, I'm just trying to share my screen. But specifically, they are as I said, the pages, which we call the root nodes, and those are the numbers of screens that you can generate in a file.
Yeah, and how many is that? Is it 80 or 90?
Yeah, it was 50 before, but I think we will increase it now to 100. And actually, I think we did it now already.
No, I think we need to. Let's. I'm not sure what the limits. We need to be a bit careful at these limits, because one of the challenges with the limits we have is that it causes, and the reason why they're there in the first place is because we're importing stuff from Figma, and obviously we can't hit Figma too hard or it causes them problems. So we have to manage that process, a little bit, and so it's a bit of an up and down sort of game, trying to figure out how we how much we can bring at a time, because we're limited by Figma. And there was recently an issue that we had when Figma changed something which caused a problem and made the number of some of these numbers go crazy, which broke a lot of stuff for people. So I think normally we're saying
I have here, actually found them already. The ones I was talking about, that's the render nodes, which are the special ones we were discussing before, that need the more work in Figma side, something like vectors or more complex UI elements, and those are 150. And then you have the nodes, which they include everything, like text, all these specific or different elements you have. Those are 2000, sorry. And then you have the assets, which include actually also the render ones, but also could be static images or SVGs, and that's 300. And then finally you have the pages, so the frames, and those are 50. So that's the limits. And try to yeah, as we said, we will try to show that whenever you hit an import error, for instance, to show what's the actual numbers you have increased or you have surpassed. So it's also easier for you to.
So obviously we need to make this a bit clearer. So I think we're going to put a page in the help center to explain this in a bit more detail. And just in terms of tricks to help hand managing that, one of my favorite ones is actually to put a skip tag on the page. And what a skip tag does is it means that Bravo completely ignores it. And so when you have often what happens in a Figma design is you'll have different ideas you're playing around with, but what will happen is unless you skip it, it will automatically import it and push up your limits. So if you've got a lot of activity on your Figma design, one of the great ways of handling the limits is to create a new page, which is just for your Figma design, and then skip all the other stuff, or just skip the page and it will ignore the other page. And then in your new page in Figma, and in XD you have to do this in a different way, but in your new page you just put in the things you want to go to Bravo, and then Bravo will ignore the pages or pages with the stuff you don't want where you're experimenting, and it'll only look at that one page. So what we're going to do is, so that's a really good way. And if you can't do that, again, you can also skip elements of your design that you don't want to incorporate individually. So skipping works, it kind of cascades down. So if you skip at a page level, ignore everything on those pages. If you want to skip at a screen, or ignore everything on that screen, or you would skip individual elements. So that's probably the quickest way of kind of just not importing things you don't need, which helps you really control the limits. Just one question about the limits, about increasing it. We're looking at ways of increasing it, but it'll probably be we want to make it so people can have much bigger projects. So we are looking at doing that, but it probably will be increasing the limits will probably be on our higher tier plan, because obviously it involves a lot more work for our side. We're trying to remove this limitation, but we're working on it at the moment, basically.
Yep.
Okay. There's a few questions here, so I'll just go through that. In Chile, I think I already answered the question about notifications and deep links. Fred's got a question with the login screen. We could try helping maybe if we've got time, but something like that might take a bit longer. It depends what the issue is. We'll come back to it in a second. David, I think in the last session you asked about limiting date input fields. As in, I think that was basically saying, can you make it so they can only choose limitations in dates, I guess, for sort of things like bookings. Now, Javier, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can actually, we can make the date field required, but we can't say what's acceptable date ranges, right?
Not in Bravo side. You will need to set it up in the backend. So if you control, or if you are able to control specific range where, for instance, you don't want the users to be able to introduce dates that are earlier than a specific date, you should have some logic in the backend that rejects that input and sends back an error or whatever. But it's not something that you can control at Bravo side at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be something that you have to do. I mean, generally, if we can't do it, it's best to deal with it in the Bravo side, with the backend side. Another question. Might be more of a backend question. This is David again. What would you tag in order to make an API call to see if a Boolean variable is true? And if so, return an icon so I can have in my Figma file. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is with states, I guess, right, Javier?
Yeah.
Or possibly conditional visibility.
Exactly. You have those two options. If you want to have, let's say, more than two different states, then conditional visibility is the way to go. In case it's more like a true false or Boolean thing, you could try with the stateful components, and that's actually like something you can create those two states for, and then control which one is active with a Boolean value from backend.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's amazingly powerful. So David takes two states, icon, not having an icon. So, I mean, either of those would work. Probably conditional visibility is a bit easier. The only thing there is you need to have the ability for your backend to return true or false. If you do that, then conditional visibility is super easy. And actually, it's amazingly powerful tool, Conditional Visibility, we have a lot of people changing logic flow by basically making the button for the logic appear and disappear. And you can actually stack lots of different buttons to have different behaviors going on. And so if it appears, press that button, goes one way, and if it's don't want to do that, you can make a different button appear which goes a different way. And so with conditional visibility, you can actually have a huge amount of complex logic, and people have done some crazy stuff with it. So probably I would say conditional visibility is the easiest thing, because states is a little bit more involved setting it up. But I would say that's probably your best bet then. And Sheila's asking about the timeline for increasing the page and frame limit. So I think it's probably best to have if you want to find, if that's really important to you, then have a chat to us. I actually have a link under, I think we call it under professional services, where you can actually book a call with me and we can talk about that. So if it's really important, so there's things we can do now or very soon. If you really need extra, if you're hitting the limits right now and you desperately need it, then come and talk to us and we'll try and figure out how to help. Okay, so I guess the only question we've left is the question around David Barrett's question. That was David. Fred Zackerman's question on the login, and he's gone. So there's probably not a lot of point talking about that one, I guess. So I think that only thing, and Sheila's just asking if she's on the Bravissimo package, and scheduling a call. It's probably best that the Bravissimo call goes to predominantly to Javier on the customer success team. It's better to go through the M-Desk, so it's a call with me. That's probably the easiest way of doing it, because you can actually schedule my calendar that way. And M's just did a reminder on the pagination, so yes, we'll have a look at that as well, because obviously that's a problem. Are there any other questions we can answer? We've done quite a lot today, but is there any other topics you want to cover, Javier?
I think I'm all set for today.
Okay, so unless there's anything else, then we'll sign off today, and we'll have a look at pagination. And if people need to ask about limits, then please. One quick question here: can you do multiple tags in a Figma text item? For example, multi-line input and flexor. Okay, I should have more questions coming in. So, can you do multiple tags in a Figma text item? Multi-line input plus flexor.
I mean, in the case for the flexor, like it's like a specific specific type of text that it's only allowed under certain basically the condition is that it needs to be the bottommost element in a container, but I guess it depends on the tag actually. So do you have, David, a specific case in mind? Okay, multi-line input, I see. Well, I mean, in the case of multi-line input, it's not a text itself, it's an input element. So in this case, it wouldn't be possible to have it as flexor, because actually, when you use the multi-line input or this text input and you start typing more text than the space you have in the screen, you will kind of go down, you will have this scroll effect.
So I mean, so certain tags can be combined, but I don't think multi-line and flexor go together. So I mean, I think that one is going to be, I think I understand what you're trying to do. I guess you want it so that the input field expands as you type in more text, but that they don't work together like that. Other tags work together, but those two don't, I don't think. So sorry about that. Bastos is asking, it's impossible, someone told him it's impossible to use info given during sign up to personalize the app. Now that's strange, because
I mean it is possible to get that information. Actually, if you create for instance an onboarding flow, you can get that info. So I guess it depends more on the type of filtering or the type of functionality, but you can for sure collect that information.
I mean, I think this might be more of a data protection thing than an app thing. I mean, with Bravo, you
Maybe.
can do a huge amount of stuff. I mean, if you, and I guess it also depends where the sign up happens. But I mean, you could have one page that's capturing data on, I mean, well, actually, as soon as they log in, you could get the GPS coordinates, and then you could have the back end serving up different pages, like the city they live in, based on that GPS coordinate. So, I mean, there's nothing in Bravo stopping you from, providing info at one page and then changing that content because it's coming from the back end for later pages. So I don't know where you told that, but that's what you're asking for sounds completely doable, Bastos. So yeah, I wouldn't say that you can have that limitation. Okay, so I'm just going to jump to Florian's question. When I submit a form, I've had alerts shown. When I close the pop-up, it shows a loading circle. It's a way to refresh the page when closing the pop-up alert message.
I mean, this sounds like maybe a specific issue you're having with your app. Maybe it's easier if you actually contact us to support, and we can have a look at that in case there is something you need to fix or something we actually need to look at.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. Because effectively, you shouldn't. I mean, it sounds like you want the alert to show, and then when you close it, because I mean, rather than have it as an alert, yeah. Well, Florian said yes, so let's do that. It might be easy to go through. And just follow up from the Bastos question. I want to filter a list based on user ID, city, given when I sign up.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess here the thing is how to more about the backend setup. So the variables that Bravo can provide are either these built-in variables like user ID, device ID, coordinates, all those, and then there are the ones that you actually can pass from other requests. So for instance, I mean, that most typical example is the list page and detail page, that you are actually passing data from the list request to the detail request, that ID value. So in this case, I guess you want to filter. I mean, if you have in that table you want to filter, if you have a field which is the user ID, you can filter those specific items by user. So I mean, that's actually something we have a documentation for. However, I mean, we can follow up maybe also by support. I will have a look at in case probably you already reached out to us about that, so we can have a look there at your specific case. But it sounds, I mean, more like a matter of setting up the correct filtering in the backend. Also, I'm not sure, like, depending on the specific functionality you want to achieve, you might also need to look for maybe a more complex backend. I'm not sure if you are using Airtable or something else, but it sounds more like a backend setting thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with Javier on that one. I think what you're asking for is should be easily doable, but your backend might be limiting you. So yeah, put a support request in and let's see what we get on that one. Okay, we had a flurry of extra questions, but I think we're pretty much done now. So thank you, Javier, again. That was very good. We covered a lot of things today, and hopefully
it was quite.
People.
I think the longest Q&A session.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's always good to try and help people. So hopefully we'll have another session, and maybe we'll have a look at solving the Xano pagination one that time. Okay, good. Well, nice to talk to everyone, and see you next time.
Yeah,
thanks.
See you. Thanks for joining.